Hello friends and welcome back. In our earlier lecture, we had discussed about the rendering process and the two rendering flow, and here in this lecture we will be actually digging into the code and will be creating an output that will be displayed on front end. For passing more information to you, I have already written certain amount of code, and then we will be copy pasting certain things so that you can have your code via the description area of this lecture, but make sure you build your understanding completely. So for that we will be using this approach upfront, and we will be going into our browser, and in our browser at this moment. Okay, so this is our page that we created in past previous lecture. We had created a route for our Litove index, and this is the output that I have done on my page. So essentially in this lecture we will be setting a page title for our page, and then we will be displaying some output on our page, which will be from our PHTML file, and then we will be linking our PHTML file to a block file and will call a function of our block class, which is this output. So first of all, I will go to my IDE and will show you what I have done till now, step by step what you have to do. So first of all, I will go to my controller index and index controller. Here you can see that earlier we had only 2 or 3 lines of output where we dispatch some event, but here I have just created a protected property, and I have two constructor argument. One is for context and other is for page factory. Why page factory? Because in the screenshot you saw the page class, so here we have the page factory for that, so that we can create a singleton instance of that class and return the output. With this page factory I passed into my property, and then in my execute function I'm using this property. Whenever you're going to create the factory of any class, so essentially in Magento when you see class name suffixed with factory, this means that your class exists here, and creating a factory here will create a separate class in your you can see in your where folder if that is not created. Otherwise this is by default created in Magento's code. So in your page factory class you will have one function, or in your every factory class you will have one function named as create, in which object manager will create the instance of that particular class. Now you will call that create function here, and for our ease and we are just setting the page title is mine. I'm just updating the page title here, and then we will be returning the output of this page factory. And I'll go to my command line, I'll clear this out, I'll flush everything, all the generated files, and then I'll go to my browser and will refresh this page. Page title is mine, and here as well page title is mine. So our output is reflected on front end. Now what happened in Magento here is you created a controller. Magento's routing system in previous lecture gave you understanding that it will reach to the execute function. So Magento reached to this point, to the execute function. Then it searched for the layout handlers. So essentially if our current URL is Litove index, if our URL is Litove index, then it means its expected layout handler is Litove underscore index dot XML. Okay, so it depends on your URL what your layout handler will be. So here I'll create one more, and I'll write a point that how to add custom handle. Okay, we will be discussing adding custom handles later on. So by default this handler will be added, so we will need a file named by this in our layout folder. In Magento you will create a view folder, and this is the second folder which will be all in small case. And in view folder you will create your area folder, and in area folder you will create a layout folder for your layout files. So from here your layout handle will be picked, as we discussed in our earlier lecture that all layouts are merged. So by essentially this layout handle was requested by Magento, so I created this layout handler earlier. And here you can see that I have a page node here, and my page node says it's a 2-column layout. And then I have a reference block, which means that I'm referencing to a other block whose name is content, and then creating a new block in which I'm passing my custom class, which I will show you in a while, and giving a name to this block. So in the same manner, when this block was declared, its class was passed and its name was declared. So I use that name, the name that was passed here, as a reference, so that my block becomes the child of this particular block. The content block is this section of Magento where the content is displayed. Now what I am doing is I pass the name, and then I pass a template here which will be calling my PHTML file. This PHTML file will be residing into my view, template and index.html file. Now understand this in a manner that that we digged into our earlier lecture, that Magento's routing was resolved. So I'll go here, and you came here to the dispatch function, your routing was resolved, and then based on that your controller was selected by Magento and execute function called, and simultaneously you created a result factory object that we returned earlier, and then you came to the app launch, and then you come to the render result. So here you have loaded everything, and then you are returning the final result. This render result, what it will do is it will load everything. It will actually, I would say, it will load layout and then again render layout. So it will load every layout. So our index XML was loaded, Litovo index HTML was loaded, and then it will render the layout. So our XML file is loaded, and now Magento is aware that I have to call this index.html file as well. So it will come to this index.html file, and here I have the echo statement, which means that the output is finally executed or returned from this file. Again, I'll go to my this page, and where we built this section where we decided that there will be certain layouts, and then we will be container, blocks and templates. You will be passing your data, your final data will be executed or displayed via your templates, and you will be linking your templates to block via XML file, blocks to PHTML file, or I can write templates. I wrote PHTML because templates are actually PHTML files, and so blocks to PHTML are linked via layout handler. So our layout handler linked this particular block to this PHTML file, and we referenced our block to this content block, which is in our content, let's say content container. So our output will be displayed front end, and that's why our output displayed on front end. Okay, so this is the first basic cycle that happens. You loaded your layout, you attached your block to container, you linked your template file to your block, and block is attached to container, so your final output is returned. So that's a basic rendering that you got with index.php. Then further your layout handle file, and then your PHTML file. But in PHTML file you have this sum function, or in your layout handler file, when you define this class Litovo first unit block index, which means you link this layout handler to a block file as well. So I created one block file here for our demo purpose. In this block file you will see that I have extended this class. Now again, in your exams point of view or sharing your knowledge, you have various type of layouts that are default created by Magento, and various type of block classes that are default created by Magento, and they always are going to extend abstract block. So if you need to create new type of block, you can use abstract block directly, but there are 5 or 6 type of default classes that has been created, so you can use them. Most of the time in your blocks you will be using template, because you will be passing your data on your browser. And if you are using blocks or if you are using API, then most probably you are not into your blocks, so you may not need to change your class. So just concentrate for now for the templates. So here I have extended the template where all the core block functioning exist. Ignore this construct function for now. Here I define the sum function and return the sum function value from here, string from here, and here I have a global variable that Magento will give me by default. By $block I can call its sum function directly. When I echo it in my browser, I have this printed sum function. So that's how my PHTML is linked on with my block file. Now why this is useful is in your PHTML file, let's say you're going to create a list or you're going to create a form. So whenever you're going to need some data, you will call a function of your block, and then block can further call your models or resource model, whatever it needs to get the data. So Magento is no longer a MVC structure directly now, where you pass your data from controller to your view. Rather than you load your view via your controller, and then with your block classes you have a functioning where you can pass your data to view via models directly, despite involving controller into that step. This helps Magento in two ways. First thing is it makes Magento a bit faster, because if controller are again going to be in use, then there will be one layer added to that, so it will be slow. And then you cannot directly create various functions that you need for front end in models directly. So your blocks are intermediate class where you can create your own functions and then ask for needed data from your models. So it is giving abstraction to models where your business logic related function should be created, but in your block your front end logic should be created. Your front end function, like if you need to create or pass a cookie, you can create a function for set cookie here and call Magento's default cookie functioning and create your function here. So that's why block are in use here in Magento. Now we will be discussing about your general way of doing things. Ideally what you're going to achieve as a requirement is you will be showing some data from database to your website's front end. You will be creating a layout handler for you will be creating a route for that. Based on that route, you have your index controller or whatever controller's execute functions will directly call. You will create a result factory object and will pass back. Based on that, your layout handler is called. Based on your URL, your layout handler is called, and on top of that your PHTML file is called, in which you will be creating your divs or various things that are related to client side. And then to get the data into this, you can use your blocks that can further use models or APIs, anything by which they will get data and pass back to your PHTML file. So this will be an ideal structure for working here. Now we're going to discuss some of the code snippets that will help us to build our understanding more deeper into our rendering. So we are on the next phase of our coding. This is simple display of some data on your front end. You know how to call your blocks function as well. So whatever you want to do, you can do it via only this information. Now I'm changing my execute function a bit, and here I will add a couple of other things that I created earlier. Okay, so we had the result factory object till now. I'll just comment this out. Now what we are going to do is we will see here first is how we can change the layout handler. So this question I wrote, so what we are going to do first is we have litove index, but I need some other layout handler to be calling here. So for that, what I will be doing is for that I will be doing this thing. I will be telling Magento's rendering system that I need you to do this rather than this. So this is the same code here, just one line added, which is add handle. I'm telling my result object or returning object that handler is not picked by default structure that Magento uses, but I want you to handle this layout handler. I want you to pick this layout handler. So this is actually the same layout handler, which is our index ditto same, and here I have this index.html file. So for instance, what I will do is I'll create I can create one more index file, or I can create something else, or actually what I will do is I'll delete index layout handle for one. So I'll go to my app, code, little way, first unit, view, front end, layout, index. So I'll delete this layout handler. So I have only this, and now I'll remove everything, and if my controller is saved, I'll refresh it and we'll expect the same output. Okay, same output, because we have forced Magento to use our layout handler now. Our layout handler is exactly same, so the same output. Essentially, if we don't write this line, we just go back whatever we had earlier. So and flush everything and refresh this. So you'll see that our PHTML file is no longer called, and this page title is mine because we set the page title here, but the content from the PHTML file is no longer showing on page because Magento was not able to find your layout handler. Index is not available right now, so that was all. Now we gave them a layout handler which is available, and again if I'll go to Magento is capable to find that layout handler. So here Magento has given you an opportunity where you can pass your own layout handlers to get the data. Now this same thing can be used in your blocks file as well. If you can use result factory there, and then you can get the data and then return the data into the to HTML. You can convert this data into HTML directly and pass that from your block to your HTML file. If you want that, you can do that. So our output should be back and our layout handler is called. I'll go to my folder and perform Ctrl+Z so that my file is back. Okay, now we know two things that were really basic and will be in your use for projects. Now next thing is these two lines of code. Okay, first of all I'll execute this and then we will discuss this further. Okay, so I have this output. I am index.php some function, and then this is a test. What I have done here is if I uncomment this just for better clarity of code, here I use result factory, and then in that I added a handler, or by default I create a result factory and then return its output. But here from your $this view you can get what is your current layout that is being loaded. So our case one page layout. So by default, if you don't have any XML layout for your file and you just want to echo some output and don't want to create your XML file, or in other way you want to say that without your XML file how you can show your data on your website's front end via controller directory, or without XML file how you can include your PHTML file to your controller directly. So this is a way. You can use get layout, then create block, and from that in block you can pass your class. So and after that you can set template to that, and then to HTML will convert that to a string, and we get the output of our PHTML class as a string in this variable, and then I'm just echoing the overall output here. So what this code is giving me is everything that is being done via this layout handler, and then calling the block, and then from block the function was returned, and final output that is created in PHTML is returned to this variable. as I have used to HTML, and then I echoed that out. And I set the template, so my index.html is called, and for index.html I pass the block name, so my index.html is capable to call the function of this particular block, where what it has been done here. So that is one more thing you may need to perform, and here you get some insights that Magento has two types of things. One is you return the factory object or page factory object or result object, and then the overall rendering is done by Magento's method. Or you force Magento to load layout, render layout. So you loading your layout, creating a block, setting a template, and then pushing it out on the front end. And let's say if that is a JSON data, then you can echo here and your controller is returning your JSON output. So for example, if I go to the website in a new tab and open up my inspect section and then my network section, and I type something, let's say TI. So here you can see that it gives a call to Magento search Ajax suggest, which is a controller and which finally returns a JSON data. So either you can convert this data into JSON and then your output is returned what Magento needed for their suggestions on this searching functionality. So you can do that as well. But ideal situation, you can return your JSON data with as you have page factory, you have JSON factory as well. So you can return your JSON data with JSON factory. But in case you need, you can use this approach as well. So this is calling HTML file directly from your controller. Now we are on the second thing, which is again going to be used in your project, that is calling the output of a CMS block. In your static block backend, I've created a block named as first block. Its identifier is FB, and then in it I have written this is a test text. If I'll open here, it will log me out, I think. Cancel. The local machine is getting slow. I'm not sure why. I think I should start redition here. I was logged in from quite a long time, so it logged me out. Bear with me. So essentially what we are looking here is I just want to show you that in my static block I have this content for my one and only static block that I have created, and how you can show that block's output on your front end, and how you're going to use this approach in your website at various places. I'm sorry, edit, and we go here. Okay, so this is a test is my content, and if I inspect element, this is a text inside p tag. So that is what I have right now. Okay, so how you can show this block's output on your page, the method is exactly similar. You are just going to get your current layout. In create block we created our block class, but for create block for CMS block, Magento's default block class is there, so you don't need to create your custom class. You can create Magento's default class, and then you can set block ID. You don't need to set template here. Block ID should be sufficient, and then to HTML will convert everything into HTML. Then you can echo that out. You can pass that data from a AJAX request to your controller, your front end, and then you can show it in any place. So this is one thing that you may need to perform. Now ideally, let me go to one page. There will be various situations where you do use that. Let's say you have a footer, so you create your PHTML file, or you create a file in which you have 4 footers. So you can load those footers from your CMS block and give your client a functionality that they can change the footer links from static blocks, and the changed footer link, your static blocks output is called here. So this way your client will have a opportunity where they can change the links from backend, and the output is displayed on front end. Simultaneously you can create various small areas of your project. Like, let's say you want to show 3 social media icons on top, and you want your admin to have the functionality to change the links. You can create a simple static block and show the output here. So that's why this is going to be really very useful. Whatever you can think that can be a static block in which admin needs customization, create a static block and show that on front end. There is one other approach that you can use for this is you can create a static block, then you can create a widget in Magento, and then assign the block to widget and widget to a particular area of your project, let's say a header. Then your block will also be displayed on front end. But the same approach that we have done here is used by Magento default. So that was again another thing. Now we will be looking into one more complicated thing, that is, now using your result factory, passing your like heading or setting your title, creating a block, but finally returning your data as a simple output, not the whole bunch of content, or like you have this front area, you have this bottom bar. You don't need that. So what you can do is, oh, I'm sorry, I will have to flush everything. So I'm index.php in some function. Why? Because of this code here. I created a page factory, I set a title, but I don't want to see that, so just ignore that. So this title line is no longer in use. I was doing some tests. And then in your get layout create block, you created a block, and then your 2 HTML. But this code I just wanted to show you, because in your index block function, block class, we had this underscore construct as well. So in your underscore construct function, you can call your parent construct, and then you can set your template file directly from here as well. You don't need to set your template from XML. You can avoid this template tag from here, and then you can directly set it from your set template function. So that's one thing by which our layout handler is not in use, and then our create block function is called, and but we are create block, Magento's pointer went to this class, and from underscore construct it automatically loaded set template, automatically loaded index.html via set template. So that is one more thing that you may need to perform, where you are setting your template directly in your block class rather than your XML class. So one more thing covered here for your daily needs. Now next thing here is really awesome, that is our favorite, load layout and render layout. So I'll go and flush everything, then load layout and render layout. I'll hit the page, and voila, I see the same output that I saw from when you created the page factory and return the output. Exactly same output. So both the page factory thing and loading the layout and rendering the layout in single shot. We'll go again to our screenshot. In the right section, you see you created a page result factory object and return there, and then your final output is loaded, or you loaded in single sequence. So this is the single sequence where you load your output, and both are exactly same thing. This is bit faster compared to the earlier one, but this is more handy and gives you more control over your code. Now what I will do here is I'll just uncomment this code, and I won't use, okay, I'll remove this handler. I just want my default handler to be called. So I just want you to show one thing. And okay, the page is loaded, the same output is achieved that was achieved via this. But why I did that is because if I scroll down here, I have the same output again. So that's where the magic is happening. Now Essentially what you have done via this is you have created an output and shown on front end, but your pointer doesn't terminate here, or the compiler doesn't stops here. The cycle is not complete, you didn't return anything, so next line is executed. Here you created the page factory object, so even you implemented this, and when you created this page factory object and return the output, the overall scenario is happening this. Either you shown your output via this method, but again you, when you created the page factory, so it went all the way back and resulted your output. Why it went back? Because it was always going to this place and coming back and then showing the output, but if you add an intermediate section, then it displays the output first. So here you can use both the methods, both the things do the same thing. You should be using this as my point of view, but Magento's core has used this, so this is not wrong in any sense. Now one more thing that you should be understanding is here we have this function which is page factory, which is a Magento 2 approach, so this is bit higher compared to this. So you will see Magento's core, this has been used mostly in your controllers, and this is sometimes in your blocks only. So in your block you can create load layout and render layout for your particular functioning, or if you want to create certain block, these type of functions mostly used in other blocks to load some other PHTML file. For example, you load index.html and then your block function is called. From this block you call any other PHTML file, or from this PHTML file you load any other PHTML file, where you can use these functioning, where you can create the block on the runtime and pass your block ID, or you can create your custom block runtime, pass your PHTML file. And in our case I would suggest you to use this approach. This approach is also not wrong. So that was all for this lecture. This lecture was very big, but we have to still cover 2 points because we are in Magento's rendering. So stay tuned and we will meet in the next lecture. Bye.